All right. Well, welcome
All
back.
right.
We are continuing our conversation in regards to resolutions. Obviously, this time of the year, it's New Year's resolutions. But for those of us that want to draw the line in the sand at different points in time, just call them resolutions. We're going to talk about why they fail so often, kind of revisit that a little bit based upon our last conversation, last podcast. So now we're getting into more breadth and depth here, just really get into the specifics of how to better assure success within your resolutions, and then how to kind of hyper accelerate those. We're going to drill down into how to fast track them by the end here, but some tools, techniques, tips that Dr. Hall is going to help talk us through in regards to how we can meet those objectives. Dr. Hall is a business psychologist, an executive coach. He's a multi-time author and a public speaker. And what I like to get into is the neuronode side of things, where we actually talk about how the brain works, how to create better mindsets, and the practical application of the things that we discuss. So with that, I'll bring Dr. Hall in. How you doing today, Dr. Hall?
I'm well. Thanks for asking. Glad to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. I think this resolution thing, we're going to talk about National Quitters Day a little bit, but I think, there's just a lot of frustration around why this builds, why it becomes a thing, why we sometimes fail, and then why other people are successful. So I hope that between kind of part one and part two, we can really give people an understanding of what we go through in our mind that either sets us up for success or dooms us to failure. So we appreciate you
Yep.
coming on.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Well, very good. Let me do a couple of small housekeeping items here. For those of you that I haven't met, my name is Jerod Lee. I'm the associate broker and team lead here at My Home Connection, also known as MHC Realty. Our sponsor for today is the perfect real estate business that we are now in large part working with Dr. Hall into bringing things into the real estate business. We're looking to reinvent kind of how we've been doing things in real estate on the real estate agent and the lending side of things. Just kind of some things that we see that are amiss, some things that are misunderstood, bring in some tools, some techniques, and some resources. So if you would like a no obligation conversation around what we could do to help with your real estate business, we'd be glad to have that conversation. So with that, I guess, Dr. Hall, the one thing that I, I wanted to kind of revisit based upon our first episode is this National Quitters Day and how
Yep.
soon in the year that it is, and why there is such a profound drop off of all of these, well intentioned people trying to better their lives. How would you sum that up?
Yeah, it was based on research from the app company called Strava, and they found that um, this after the second Saturday after New Year's is when most people give up on their New Year's resolutions. So you'll actually see on their software a profound change that people's activity will drop by that second Saturday, and they just started calling it National Quitters Day.
So we are, people are going to watch this after, obviously we air. So we're past the first Friday, which is like 2 days after New
Yeah,
Year's.
yeah.
So we're on a Monday. So in less than 5 days, some obnoxious amount of people are going to fail on a resolution they made less than 2 weeks ago, like 80, 85%.
Yeah, somewhere around 80%. Yeah,
Yeah.
four out of five people will quit.
Wow. So hopefully we can focus on some of the tools and the skills to improve those numbers. We talked in last episode about this idea of metacognition, right? Thinking about our thinking. And
Right.
really, my take is if we're honest with ourselves, I could probably guess that people can know if they're going to be failing sooner than later or not if they're really honest with themselves. What's your take on that? Like if you really ask somebody to honestly say, are you serious or not?
You, you know, I think human beings are an inherently self-deceptive species. I mean, we all
Mm,
lie to ourselves. I don't think there's a particular type of person that lies to themselves. Um, it's actually far more rare for a person to be pretty sober about their strengths and their limitations. Um, I do get a little more concerned about people who are very dependent on hype to get themselves through, that they're gonna get through on inspiration and emotion. That's probably one of the more um, unreliable ways to change your behavior. The people that I see succeed, they first pick one thing. That's it. They make a New Year's resolution, and I think there's good research on that. You can look at The Power of Habit, Atomic Habits, a book called Willpower. All of those kind of address the point that just choose one thing at a time, and those will be the things that'll help you to succeed. But in alignment with that is a thing that lots of other people have talked about, which is it's setting up a process. And in my business, we call it stimulus control, which is set up your environment so you can't help but do the right thing. And a process is essentially an external scaffold upon which you build your habits. And so you set up a process, you set up the environment so you can't help but do the right thing. And if you make those specific tactical plans, strategy is I'm going to lose weight. Tactical is, okay, I'm going to, and one example I've used in the past is I'm going to go sleep with my running clothes on. And so in the morning, I don't have any excuse not to go running because my shoes are right beside my bed and I'm already dressed. So
right,
I'm
right.
going to go out and do it. So it's setting up that external scaffolding ahead of time so that it requires less thought. Because the more you have to decide, the more resistance you have to change.
Mm. I love all of that because you've touched on a lot of the items that I've kind of put down here, and I want to get into those specific details for sure. But I
Hmm.
do want to back up a little bit more, and it just kind of occurred to me as I was putting this together. Um, and this may be trivial, so we won't spend a whole lot of time on it, but I think it's important to, as I looked at the definition of a resolution, the personal promise, and then the betterment of your life, those two things kind of stood out to me is um, you're making a promise to yourself
Yeah.
that you are likely going to better yourself either by doing things you didn't normally do or quit doing things that you know are unhelpful.
Yeah.
And to your point that you just touched on, that I'll pull up here, is that intrinsic motivation, right? We've talked about this briefly on other episodes. Is if you've got to go to a group to tell you to drive yourself to accomplish something that doesn't have nearly the percentage of success, then if something within you says, this is a promise I'm making to myself because I'm either wanting more out of life or I'm sick of this out of my life.
I guess, Jared, maybe I take issue with that I think it really depends on a person's personality.
Mm,
I think there are lots of people who really they get committed if they make public commitments to other people.
mm,
And I think there are certain personalities that really are socially driven and they're driven by the opinions of other people. There are other people who just don't care. And so, no amount of group pressure is going to make them change their behavior. They're going to
mm,
change when they darn well decide to change. So I think you need to study yourself. Are you a person who needs a group of people around you to keep you going, to 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 keep that going? And I will I think an extrinsic motivator of that group feeling, um, that that can be helpful as the person, again, that's part of the scaffolding you build, as the person then changes their self-impression from, we'll use an easy one at the beginning of the year, exerciser, non-exerciser to exerciser. If you need to go to a spin class and that you love being there with people and you make friends and that keeps you going and you feel like you're going to disappoint your friends by not showing up, that's an external scaffold that you create until you get to the point where, okay, I'm a I'm a spin instructor. This is who I am.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. I'm okay
Yeah.
with that. And then there are other people's like, I'm not going to get in with a group of sweaty people on bikes at 6 in the morning. I'm going to do my own thing. That's fine. Know
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things I wanted to do in this episode was talk about some examples, obviously real estate related examples and then just life examples. So let's try to intertwine those fairly
Sure.
quickly throughout this. But I love as an example of what you're talking about. I have a friend of mine that absolutely has to go to the gym. Like that's his MO. He likes the effort of getting out, going to a place, doing
Sure.
his thing and coming back. And he's tried to bring in some home workout equipment and it just sits there and collects dust.
Right.
For me, I'm the total opposite. I had to acknowledge the beginning of last year that, okay, I want to get into resistance training and I am not going to get up every day, get my stuff together, get in my car, go to the gym, do my thing. You know what I mean? Like that's just too much time. It's not
Right.
how I'm wired. He's retired. He's got that luxury, anyway, but your point is, metacognition, thinking about what you're going to do and get it done personally.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, that self-awareness of what really drives you, what's going to work for you. And when I hear people, and this is an example, we're giving blanket global insight. And so the specifics will be different for every person. And I certainly know that. But I hope people who are watching and listening realize, okay, the most important thing is for me to understand myself and apply what they've talked about that will work for me. You
right.
should pick and choose the things that are going to work for you.
Yeah, and we have decided to approach our coaching and our mentoring and all that from that perspective. Let's personalize a program for you that works, right? We have
Hmm.
not built a real estate business in a box per se. You have your courseware that we teach to talk
Sure.
about, and that applies to everybody. Kind of the strength coach or an athletic team, you're the mindset coach for what we do, and that's everybody. Their minds work this way, but figure out how you personally want to pursue your real estate business. And where
Right.
I'm going
Right.
with that is the identity side of thing. Okay, the numbers, the most recent numbers I've seen are 75% of agents fail in the first year, and then 85% are gone within 5 years. So what is it that makes that fail? And I think in large part, it's a lack of identifying with being a real estate agent. There's other things, but if I'm going to be successful at this, don't just say I'm doing real estating. Say I am a real estate agent. I am a realtor, and these are the activities, the actions, the behaviors that an agent would do, and I've got to go do those things. That identification in your mind. I don't know. Am I
Well, I
oversimplifying?
mean, Jerod, I think the identification is great, but I think you touched on maybe the most important thing, which is if I identify with that identity, if I say I am a realtor or I am a real estate agent, then it isn't just looking in the mirror and saying, "Look at me," and I've got the right clothes and I've got the right car. It's doing the behavior or the behaviors. It's imitating the best practices of the people who are successful. But what comes before those best practices, the behaviors, is the pattern of thinking that excellent people in any field do. And pros in any and every field have a lot of similarities. They have they practice, they rehearse, they study, they find the best and the brightest in their field and they imitate them or they learn from them. So those are all activities, actions that people who are successful. So um, I think that mindset is terribly important. I think it's also a sober reckoning of, okay, this endeavor has a high failure rate. Okay, so what do I have to do to be one of the top 10 or 15% who last? What struck me, and I'm not an expert in real estate failure, but I know an awful lot about business failure and about only 10% of businesses are still in business after 10 years, which is remarkably similar to the failure rates in real estate. So you've got to ask yourself the question, okay, am I willing to be one of the top 10% of the people who start here? And so when you take the real estate exam, look around and you go, okay, in 10 years, 9 of these people are going to be gone. What do I
Yeah.
have to do differently than those other people?
It's interesting. I came across some conversations, I don't know, it was Reddit or something like that, about one of the, I try not to use names, but one of the largest coaches in our industry gets a lot of heat because he's never opened a home, sold a home, written a contract, but he's wildly successful at being a coach.
Yeah.
And what he's teaching is the things that you're talking about. As an independent agent, you don't have a boss per se, right? If you don't want to do the things you need to do to be a real estate agent, unless you're paying somebody to breathe down your neck and point it out that you need to get it done, it's not going to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're,
I in his defense, I don't even know who this person is, but in his defense, one of the winningest baseball managers in history was Tommy Lasorda.
yeah, never
Do
played.
you know how many major league at bats Tommy Lasorda had?
Rhymes with hero.
No, he had five.
Oh,
Five major
okay.
league
It
at
wasn't
bats.
zero. Okay.
No, it wasn't zero, but it was pretty close to zero. So
Yeah.
he
Belichick.
was not a pardon me?
Football. Belichick, right? He's a,
Yeah, I mean, people who are, and then we look at people like Michael Jordan, fantastic basketball player, not a very good coach. And so there's a different skill set in doing the task from helping others to succeed in the task. And certainly some content knowledge is important, but you may be surprised that people who are not excellent in your particular endeavor can start to look at the details of how excellent people in your profession think and behave, and then set up mental rehearsal systems, behavioral rehearsal systems, so that you can be successful in your business.
yeah. Yeah. I think I have, let's see. Yeah, we'll jump to that a little bit here. Habits, right? We all have habits. We go throughout our day. Our day is built upon habits. We get up, we do these things, and then we do these things. And that's just
Yep.
kind of muscle memory. And that's how we work. And that's one of the things I wanted to talk about is that you've focused on is you either replace bad habits uh, or you omit bad habits or replace with better habits the things that you do that have a result in a direction, a positive direction, probably in alignment with your resolution.
Yeah.
I used to do these things for the first 2 hours of my day that didn't help me further my real estate career. So now I got to figure out how to build muscle memory around the first 2 hours. I'm just inserting time block
Yeah. I
here.
mean, one of the proverbs I like is uh, as as one nail pounds out another nail, or as one nail drives out another nail, so a better habit drives out a bad habit. And
Mm,
you can't replace a bad habit with nothing. You have to replace it with a better habit. And so anytime you're trying to improve yourself, you've got habits of subtractions and then habits of addition. So you've got to pull things out, you've got to stop doing things, but then you have to replace them with things that you're starting to do that are more productive. So if your first 2 hours of the day is you know playing Candy Crush, does anybody even play Candy Crush anymore?
I have no
Um,
idea.
I have no idea. I've never played it. If you're playing a game on your phone for the first 2 hours, yeah, you could. That's when you gotta. That's one you got to stop doing, and then replace it with a better habit. You're not going to replace it with nothing,
Right.
because an easy habit will always come back in.
So I put this start small idea in here, and my thought process was, what is your take on the idea of lying to ourselves? Meaning, I've got a resolution, and I tell myself I'm going to stick to it, um, but then I don't, and this is 5 years later that I've made these resolutions. What is your mind now thinking the next time you tell it, I'm going to do this thing? I mean, does it just throw us like, really? Come on, you've lied to
Well,
me for years.
if you if you view it as a quick fix, right? Then yeah, you're going to say, "Well, I'm lying to myself. I'm never going to change. I may as well, go back and live in the sewer." I, okay, then you've given up. So what I encourage people that I work with to think about is a thing called sawtooth progress. And what people think is, okay, I'm here, and then I'm going to go up, and I'm going to get better. And it's going to go just like that. It's going
I'd
to go
love it.
up and better.
Yeah.
It never goes like that. It goes up and down and up and down, and that's the sawtooth. And so you've got to look at, okay, I have good days and bad days, but over the long haul, is it getting better? And so if you have a bad day, you don't say, "Oh, see, I'm a failure. I'm a loser. So why don't you kill me?" So you have to say, okay, this is one of those bad days. There's a concept called regression to the mean, which is a statistical concept. Um, and one of the famous stories comes from Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky. They were consulting with the Israeli Air Force, and they were trying to teach the instructors that you've got to reward people for good behavior. And they said, yeah, that doesn't work. And they said, well, why not? Well, if I yell at the guy, he does better. If I tell him he does a good job, he does worse the next time. And they were trying to think why that would be, because it just doesn't make sense. Then they realized, oh, if you really screw up, on average, like if you're going to be on average and then you screw up, guess what your next performance is going to be? It's going to be better, because on
Mm,
average you're going to go up and down,
mm,
right? On
hmm.
average, you're going to have bad days, good days, but on average, so when you do badly and they yell at you, guess what's going to happen? Whether they yell at you or not, you're going to go back closer to the average.
Mm,
When you do really well and they reward you, it doesn't matter if they reward you or cuss you out for doing better, you're going to go back to average.
mm.
So it
Interesting.
trains us to think punishment and scolding works and praise is the opposite. No, you're just watching what's called regression to the mean. That
Mm.
if you have a particularly good day, the next day is going to be closer to average. If you have a particularly bad day, the next day is going to be closer to average. So you've got to always view your progress not as smooth and up. It's jagged and up. So you've got to look over the long course of time.
Yeah, I love that. But I guess the start small thing, what I was thinking is,
Mm-hmm.
if you're inclined to think, if you're monitoring your thoughts and you realize, hey, you know what? If I'm honest with myself, I've told myself this over and over and over again, and I never do it. So therefore, how can I take myself seriously? But would it the start small idea? If you just say, here's a resolution and it's small, and you give yourself successes, I'm going to do this, and then I do that, and then I would do this
Yeah,
small
I
thing again.
when people ask me, should I pick something that's really important or really big,
Hmm.
or should I pick something small? I always say pick the small one. You want to start with a win, something that you can conquer, and then you start to recreate your thinking about yourself, which is, okay, I could do this. What's the next thing, the next bigger thing that I can do? And then you gradually choose bigger and bigger things to succeed at. It's much like weightlifting. You don't tell a person, hey, go lift 500 pounds. You start small.
Yeah.
And with practice and rehearsal, they begin to see that they can lift more and more, and then eventually they do get to 500 pounds if that's what they want to do.
Yeah. Now the idea of building small successes into big successes in your brain, if you're monitoring this and you're like, okay, if I do these things and I have successes and I get that dopamine hit, or that sense of pride, or that built up confidence, then these are the things that matter to me the most, and I can accomplish bigger things now because I've done
Hmm.
this before, and I know what things I need to stack on top of another in order to make greater strides. And that's ultimately where we're trying to go in this episode: is how do we fast track this right now, instead of having, hey, it took me 3 or 4 years to accomplish one resolution because I couldn't figure out how to do it, or how my mind worked, or what distractions I need to remove, or whatever. Like, let's not only collapse that down into making single 1 year resolutions, but what you mentioned earlier is you work with successful people that collapse it down into quarters.
Yeah, yeah, they have their their 12-week year, and so yeah, they collapse it to quarters. But it's important that you realize, to your point, start small with every quarter. There's kind of a that what we can accomplish in a year and always underestimate what we can accomplish in 10 years.
Mm.
So I'll say it again. We always overestimate what we can accomplish in a year, but underestimate what we can accomplish in 10 years, which means that it's just a steady persistence. Eventually, you're gonna have something really phenomenal.
Hmm. Yeah, just keep stacking.
Mm-hmm.
Start small. If when you fail, it's not if you're going to fail. Usually, it's when you
You
fail.
no, no, it's not usually. It's every time. Everybody fails at some point.
Yeah,
That's just how life works.
and kind of back to an earlier episode, it's if you fall really really hard, sometimes it's more difficult to get up, right? Face planting is way more painful. You want to lay there longer, and you got to you don't just immediately bounce up and walk it off. I mean, that was
Right.
brutal versus a slight stumble and you kind of try not to look silly and you get up and you start walking again. In either
Yep.
case, your job is to get back on the horse. It's to get past that failure, know it was coming up, know what you're going to do when it arrives, and move past it as quick as you can.
Right. But if the first time you get on a horse, you break both legs and puncture a lung, you're probably not going to get back on.
Right,
But if you
right.
if you fall off and you sprain your shoulder, then you're far more likely to get back on the horse. So it's important that your failures um, are graded for your experience. If you have a super colossal failure early on, you can really get inside your head and really tell yourself some pretty awful things and never try again.
Yeah,
And so I really encourage people, start small, start with small wins. And it goes back to a concept we've talked about in the past, which is self-efficacy, which is being able to look at your past experience, say, okay, I've been successful in this area. Here are the skills that I learned here, and I can apply them to this new area. So start small and keep working your way up. And with that experience, you'll just get better and better.
yeah. This one wasn't one I was planning on bringing up, so if it's a long-winded conversation, just let me know. We can put it in another episode. But one of the things that I was told a long time ago is uh, our subconscious knows neither logic or time, meaning we can tend to take a current situation and superimpose something that happened as long as 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago on today, where nothing is the same. The people involved, who I am, what I'm doing, but my subconscious can like kind of superimpose or project those old memories onto this current situation and holding me back or causing fear or causing concern because it doesn't have the ability to apply that logic nor understand the time that has lapsed since the last time I made that colossal crash and burn.
Yeah.
What do you see, how, kind of how the mind works as it relates to that?
Um, I think that's absolutely true. That our our brains tend to work in such a way to protect us, and if we've had a bad experience, we will we will work to protect ourselves from that bad experience, whether whether the danger is real or not. Our brain is doing a threat appraisal. Is this a dangerous situation? Okay, I'm going to protect, and so the brain defaults to protect. It defaults to security. Um, uh, so so anytime there's a risk, yeah, you'll go back to bad habits, even if there's no real risk. Um, I'll use an example from the shooting sports. Some people who shoot firearms, they think it's hilarious to give an inexperienced person a very powerful handgun, and they pull the trigger and it hits them in the head, and they just have a bad experience. Well, You've just trained a person never to be a good shot ever again,
They're always
because
going to be fearful.
they'll always flinch. And
Yeah.
so you want to start a person, probably with a BB gun, with no kick.
Yeah.
So
Small
so so that
successes.
small successes. So you work your way up rather than try to take it all on at once, because your brain will respond to that in a way to keep yourself from being harmed.
Yeah. Well, I hate to keep going back to our original episode, but it's so important, right? And in any number of things that we do is that metacognition, uh, analyzing what we're thinking. Like, I'm in this situation. Why is my knee-jerk reaction this? Is it fear? Is it anxiety? Is it fight? Is it flight? Is it freeze? Why am I doing these things? And then kind of rebuilding the reality, right? Because and I'm going to butcher this, so you'll have to clean all this up, but right. But the idea of the neuroplasticity, the way that our brain is inclined to think, the way that it normally processes things, that's the path that it goes down. And now, as we do new things, especially things with resolutions that are foreign to us, that are unusual or totally the opposite of what we used to do, you're rerouting all of that traffic, right? And the
Yeah.
first time you go to reroute it isn't perfect. It's
Oh,
like
no, it's bad. I mean, you,
it's
you,
horrible.
yeah, you're rerouting traffic that's been going down a four-lane superhighway, and you're trying to cut a little path in the jungle. So, I mean, it really is hard. I'm trying to think of an example. Yeah, one doesn't come to mind right now, but um, if you tell yourself I am a failure, th- I guess I'm jumping back to your brain doesn't perceive real from not real. Um, our minds, because they're protective, can be afraid of imagined things as much as they can be
Mm.
afraid of real things.
Hmm.
So anytime you go into a scary movie, it's all pretend. But it's terrifying because your brain believes it's real. I have a friend. He was the head of his college student activities, and this was in the 80s, or maybe it was the early 90s. They opened up the swimming pool at night, and everybody sat in floaties, and they made it pitch black, and they showed Jaws.
Oh no. Oh no, that's
I mean, you know
awful.
exactly where I'm going,
That's
right?
awful.
You're in a swimming pool in
Yeah.
Indiana. It was a little swimming pool in Indiana inside,
Wow.
but they're watching Jaws. He said it was terrifying.
That is sadistic. Who thinks that stuff up?
Well, he's remarkably creative, but if you think about it,
Wow.
it's all imagined. There's pictures of a shark being broadcast on a wall. There's no shark within 1,000 miles of your location, and yet you believe you're in danger.
Yeah.
And so people were terrified of this experience, and we all know I'm not doing that, because
Yeah.
we know our imagination can frighten us as much as the real thing.
Yeah, he's still a good friend, but it was sketchy for a while there. He talked me into going to arachnophobia way back in the day in the theater. And I
Uh-huh.
literally got up and walked around. I was freaked out. And, it's just because, that's the way our brain thinks, and we have to be aware what it
Yes.
can do. As an example, I don't know, I got presented with some video of these guys that do these weird things like these parkour things, jumping from building to building or high thing to high thing. And, I'm sitting in a chair or doing whatever, looking at this thing, but I feel like the sense of potential, life threatening activity by watching them. So I'm just saying our brains can do powerful things. And if we're not aware of what it's doing or how to overcome what it's doing, we can fall victim to those things.
So the way to overcome it is to expose yourself to the thing in real life over and over and over again. And so if you're afraid of spiders, like arachnophobia, the only way to really cure that is not to go to movies that are designed to frighten you, but is to spend more and more time with real spiders, handling them, holding them, being around them. And that's the only way you get past it. So the only way you get past any of the internal anxieties that you have is to really face them. And it's terrifying. I mean, it's not any fun. And you keep approaching it, you keep trying it, and eventually it works.
I'll keep this short, but it's a funny story. But I have a client now, friend, that is terrified of spiders. So he now has 40 uh, big spiders. Anyway,
Tarantulas?
tarantulas. Thank you. Has 40
Yeah.
of them. He goes, yeah, I got to get over my fear of spiders. Anyway,
And he did. They don't bother him now.
yeah. So I guess these stories are cute and all, but really, our resolutions can be fearful of failure or regression or you know not living up to what you told your friends you were going to do or whatever. But you got to keep doing it. It's foreign, it's awkward, it's uncomfortable, it's new, and you just got to keep putting yourself there until what is it? Was it on this slide or the other one? Until it becomes that muscle memory that's
Yeah.
just what you do.
That
Um,
it's that then it becomes a habit. And a habit is essentially a long string of behaviors that you put together that require no thought. Once it becomes habit, you're not thinking about it. When I tie my shoes, I'm not thinking about tying my shoes.
yeah,
I,
it just happens.
I've done it, tens of thousands of times. I don't have to think about it.
Yeah,
Um,
in the train of examples, one of the things that I had to identify with and had to become a habit is becoming a walker. Like in my health journey, I identified that walking is something that I need to do because I'm not a runner for whatever reasons, but I
yeah,
want to stack habits. I need to make phone calls. I want to read books. I want to do whatever. So now I'm going to be a walker,
yeah,
right? So the things you were talking about in some of these examples is setting myself up for success. I get the right shoes. I got a raincoat for when it rains. I got a heavy coat for when it snows. I got, bigger boots for when it snows or whatever. Like, get the excuses out of the way. A reason's a reason, and that's
yeah.
the reasons are going to come up, but excuses need to be minimized. And I
Hmm.
just need to identify this is what I do. And I spent a couple of years walking, and it's just a habit now. It's just muscle memory. I don't even think about got to go walking. I get up and I do a couple things, and the next thing I know, I'm walking my 4 miles.
Yeah.
And now I'm transitioning to kind of resistance training. So it's a different muscle memory I got to build for
Diff-
different reasons, for a different phase in my health journey. But now I've got to build. I mentioned earlier I had to have a home gym because I know I'll fail at going to the gym. So do the things, put the things in place that are going to set you up for success. Identify with somebody that works out and do the habits that a person that works out would do.
Yeah, and
Anyway,
so like if you're talking about in the business context, there's a lot of people with call reluctance. Is they don't want to pick up the phone, they don't want to have that conversation because they don't know how it'll come out, and it might be difficult, it might be unpleasant, or it might be embarrassing. So they avoid. Okay, well, people who are successful, they they just they make the call, and it's hard, and sometimes it is embarrassing, and sometimes it is a failure. Okay, they just keep making the calls, and over the course of 1,000 phone calls, they learn. Okay, I can do this, and then it just becomes who they are. They
yeah,
start their day off knocking out the calls
yeah,
or knocking out the
I
emails, whatever it is.
yeah, I love the segue into the career side of things because as we talk about, you can be a real estate agent, but what does that mean for you, right? I talk about, and I probably should change my phrase here, many ways to skin a cat, right? If I'm a real estate agent, what are those habits? Am I a person that does open houses? This is what I do. I find open
It's what,
houses, I
yeah,
go to them, I sit them, I meet people, and I build relationships. Or I'm
yep,
a networker. I go to networking events and I meet a lot of people. I get to know them better and ask for them to refer me business because I'm also referring them business. Or you're
yep,
that call, you're because I'm not this guy, so the term is not on the tip of my tongue. But you're the call maker and you're calling
yeah,
expireds and FISBOs, and you got to figure out what you want to do, how you're designed, what fits into your life, and what you're ultimately going to be passionate about doing and love doing, right? If you stick me in a phone 8 hours a day and told me I got to make hundreds of calls, that's torture to
right,
me.
right. I think what you're getting at is a principle um, that was outlined in a book called Talent is Overrated, and The Talent Code. These are two great books, but they both pretty much say the same idea, which is um, talent is overrated. What is not usually paid attention to is how much do people enjoy the practice that gets somebody to the point that they have talent.
Yeah.
And so if we look at somebody who's going to be successful, they're far more likely to practice in the area. So for you, dialing for dollars is not your thing. Okay, you're probably not going to become great at it because you don't enjoy the practice enough. But if there's some activity that can enjoy enough that you'll continue to do, be it networking meetings or doing open houses, whatever, yeah, you'll get really good at those
Yeah.
because there's enough reward for the practice.
Yeah, and sometimes I think you've got to do what needs to be done to make the business, for example, make the business happen. We have an agent on our team. He's not an open house guy per se. That's not the long-term vision of his business.
Mm-hmm.
But it happened to fit into his financial situation and his timelines. So he's been very successful at that, certainly relative to the start of the career. But long term is we've talked about doing the networking thing, but then it's going to cost more time. It's going to cost more money
Right.
to get involved with the networking event. But there's be a transition out of kind of the hope open house thing idea into the networking thing. So it's
Right.
it's a planned transition. So I guess what I'm saying is figure out with what you can do with what you've got now
Right.
that has a plan to it and has habits and you've built muscle memory around it, and then make a concerted effort and timeline on when you're going to transition to a new plan, which is now going to require different daily activities and things
Yes.
like that. But you have to think through it and process it and do it. I know it sounds simple, but I think the idea that it all starts in your mind and you're either setting yourself up for success or failure all the while is
Yeah,
important to
and
note.
the way I trace it back all to the mind is people look at the outcomes. They go, I want that outcome. Okay, so what do you need to do to get that outcome? Well, I
Hmm.
need to do these behaviors. Okay, so where do the behaviors come from? Well, the behaviors come from a changed and sustained pattern of thinking. And most people don't take that extra step back to what are the ways successful people in my area actually think.
Yeah. 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 If I'm going to do this, can I replicate what somebody's already done because there's evidence, right? Um, oh, what's that saying? We did a series on it. Basically, success has evidence. Anyway, so do the things you know should work, and if it doesn't work for your specific application, tweak and refine, fine tune as best you
Yeah.
can, right? He found very quickly that there's a price point in a certain area of these open houses that work better than others. He just and they kept.
Keep hammering at that spot.
Yeah, or his introduction to people, or digging deeper into understanding what their wants and needs are, and he just kept refining. So I'm just saying sometimes you got to do stuff that wouldn't necessarily be in alignment with your ideal way of building a business. But the idea of how you go to something and then you refine, tweak, and improve applies everywhere.
Oh yeah,
Um,
it does apply everywhere, and everybody wants the sexy job with the sexy everything, and most of life is not that way. Sometimes you just got to grit it out, and if you can tolerate and somewhat enjoy the gritting it out, whichever way it is, that's how that's your first foothold. That's your first toehold. That's how
yeah,
you get in. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and I don't want to spend. We've got like three more to go through, and I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on the next one because we've talked about it in past episodes, and I think it should be pretty clear. But the things that are stopping you from or holding you back from the success you want to have or fulfilling your resolutions, like you got to figure out how to get them out of your life or change them, right? If you've got friends that are drinkers and you're trying not to drink, that's a pretty obvious one.
Yeah.
If you've got friends in real estate and you're a real estate agent and they're always negative about where the business is going. That's not healthy or helpful.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
you
and so you'll end up at the bar in the middle of the day complaining about how hard this business is. Hey, guess what? You're not. That's not how you're going to succeed.
yeah.
There are no fish biting at the bar. Okay.
Right, you're right. Especially when you got four other people around you, they're doing the same thing you did, all,
Yeah,
gonna swoop on the prospective client. Anyway,
and complaining about how hard life is. No, you need to be around the people who are going to build you up, help you to succeed, and help you to think differently.
yeah. Yeah. And that's a good transition to the accountability uh, portion of this, right? Is, you know, did you keep your resolution to yourself? Are you the only one that's going to hold yourself accountable to it? Did you tell a friend or tell a group, and you're all committed to encouraging each other and motivating each other, or whatever help you can provide? Do that. It's like, hey, I stumbled. If I can't do a good job of encouraging myself, which most people aren't good at, have somebody that you can call that says, "Hey, look, man, that's just a one-off. That just was a quirk.
Yeah,
That was a fluke. Like, or it's consistent. Quit doing that. Don't drive down that road, or do that
right.
thing, or whatever it is, so that somebody is looking over your shoulders, right? Because those people aren't in the trench that you're in. It, life seems pretty obvious. Like, don't do those things to them because they're not taking shots in the trenches you're in.
Right.
So just by virtue of them living a different life and having a different perspective, they often,
Having a different point of view, yes,
yep,
they can help you. It goes back to your personality. Some people want a group of people around them to hold them accountable. Others want one or zero people to hold them
yeah,
accountable, and
yeah,
you've got to figure out what works for you.
yeah, yeah,
I don't want a squad of people like checking up on me. I mean, I don't like that. So that's not the way I'm going to do it. Other people, that's their
they
jam.
love it.
They should.
Yeah.
That's what they should do.
Yeah, we have a small men's group, and I just took it upon myself to kind of share with the group, hey, here's my New Year's resolution. I'd love encouragement. I'd love, you know, um, just to have conversations around this every once in a while to kind of check in. And everybody said, hey, be glad to help, but not many people chimed in about their resolution. So to your
Yeah.
point, and the ones that didn't won't, like, that's not their MO. They don't want
Right.
to somebody asking them, hey, what about that resolution you told us 2 weeks ago?
Right. And frankly, Jerod, I mean, you took a pretty bold risk going public, and some people just don't want to take that risk. They might benefit from a group of accountability, but it does take a risk to say, hey, I need help in this area.
Yeah, well, it felt awkward, because you don't want to give a negative response. I'll just share it here. And that's, far less news in social media. It's just a time sponge. It can be negative.
Yep.
It can be, whatever, distraction. So I just threw it out there. But yeah, in a couple of weeks, in a month or whatever, I'm expected that I'm going to get a question from the guys in the group. Hey, how's that going? And I'm optimistic that I'll be able to say, well, you know,
Yeah.
probably not as good as I would have liked it to be prior to the beginning of the resolution, but knowing I
But it
got a
never is.
report.
But yeah, but it never is as good as we can imagine it, and it's still better than it was before you made the resolution.
Yeah. Yeah. And the refining and the tweaking thing I think is super important because I realized, it's usually all or nothing. I'm just not going to do it at all. It's like, really? Like, you're on social media, you do podcasting, you to say you're not going to do any social media stuff when you're part of your work career is in
Right.
social media. That's a little tough to do, you know.
Yeah, and it's a lot easier to make absolutist resolutions. I will never do X again. Well, most of life isn't like that. You have to you have to you have to learn moderation for many things, and sometimes you, you're so overwhelmed by a thing, abstinence is the best way to do it. But for most of us, for most things, moderation is a is the way we have to live, and it's far more difficult than absolute abstinence.
Yeah, food is a good example of that,
It's
right?
a
For
great
people that
example.
that want to back off calories, that's a thing you can't omit or have abstinence from. You have to eat.
You have to eat, right? Right. I mean,
So then your conclusion is moderation, right? I've not
yeah. I mean,
been
we.
moderate.
I mean, I think with rare exception, all of us can live without methamphetamine, but very few of us can live without food.
Right. Right. So figure out how to be moderate about it. And by the way, that gives yourself some room for grace and helps you figure out how to stay, out of the weeds or,
Yep.
out of the ditch. To say I can handle some of that, because if you just say I'm going to abstain always, alcohol is probably a decent example. Like, hey, I'm just going to abstain. Uh,
Oh, yeah. I mean, you can abstain from alcohol and live a perfectly fantastic life,
yeah,
but it's tough to live any kind of life without food.
yeah. But if you figure out how to moderate it and you control it instead of it controlling you, which because usually it's the opposite, right? Alcohol is, in my perception, one of those things that becomes a slippery slope. Like, oh, I just drink here and there. But as you build up a tolerance, now it's not only here and there, but it's kind of ends up being
Here,
everywhere.
there, and everywhere.
Right, right. So can you control that? Most, lots can't. It just
I,
becomes,
most people can. I mean, if we look at the statistics on alcohol, most people are moderate to light drinkers. Um, Really, only about 10% of the 10% of the drinkers drink 50% of the alcohol.
mm,
So
interesting.
most of us can be moderate in our drinking, and
Yeah,
most of us can be moderate in lots of other things. But if you're one of those 10% of drinkers, maybe abstinence is the way to go for you.
yeah, yeah,
But with most things in life, social media being one of them, whatever the habit is, moderation is the way most people are going to approach it.
yeah. Makes sense. Makes sense. So I really want to get into this idea of fast tracking your resolutions because I think there's a lot of power in that. So you built up small successes. You're getting really good at understanding how you approach something and how you build your confidence, how you build your habits, how it becomes muscle memory. And now you're going to benefit from uh, these prior successes, and now you're going to accelerate it. The idea that you could do what is normally an annual resolution every quarter makes me envision somebody that can accomplish something in a year or two that most would take, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 years because they're not always successful at their New Year's resolution. Um, but I guess you're doing all of these things very well. Everything we're talking about, right? You're setting yourself up for success. You're having small successes. You're removing distractions. You're monitoring what you think because you need to change what you think when it's not helpful. I mean, you're running on all cylinders basically in order
Yeah,
to,
and that's really tough to sustain long term. So you've got to make sure that you view your life not as a constant push, but it's a push, then it's a recovery, push recovery. And so if we look at anybody who's successful, they don't just burn all the time. They push and then they recover. They push, then they recover. No one can sustain that pace. I mean, there's David Goggins, but he's you know
superhuman.
un,
Yeah.
I mean he's unnaturally uh, disciplined, and so just recognize, okay, I'm not David Goggins. Okay, so I'm gonna push, then I'm gonna recover. I'm gonna
Yeah.
push. I'm gonna recover.
Yeah. Well, look at there's a good example of a guy that has clearly got an intrinsic motivation. Nobody drives him
Oh,
other than himself. And he's
yeah.
got habits that just facilitate all of these superhuman activities that he does. So if you're talking about somebody that can motivate themselves and build habits around things that perform at a very high level, that guy's running on all cylinders
Oh, he is. What I hope people will do is use him as an inspiration, but not as a ruler, not as a measuring stick.
because you
It's like,
can't.
wow, if he can do that, I can do better than I'm doing now. Rather than if he can do that, I should be able to do it too. No.
Yeah. That's a very good point, Dr. Hall, because I did fall into that trap. I did go through a phase of trying to stack too many resolutions, trying to have too many habits, habit stacking and accomplishing a lot. And I did experience burnout. And I was just so discouraged with myself because I was exhausted. And I felt unsuccessful because I was losing the energy to do all of those things, and I needed to do exactly what you said, and that's just take a breather
Yeah.
and put a sanity check around what I can really do at the pace that it can be done in my life and what I have going on. And it took me a while to formulate all that and really compose in my mind what pace I could go at with what things. And now it's much better. I can burn, but not burn out, and then
Right.
recover. You
And then
know.
recover. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean,
Yep.
I don't know what the thing is with Goggins that gives him that incredible capacity. I don't think he's broken. I think he's just unusual. Um, but not everybody has that. Not everybody is 7 feet tall and can play in the NBA. So just assess. Okay, this is what I've got. How do I use it the best?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a great way to wind up or land the episode, land the airplane here. Let's make sure that everybody knows how to get a hold of you and some of your resources.
Yep. So probably the best way to get in touch with me is my website, drrogerhall.com, drrogerhall.com. On it, you can access uh, my Freak Out course and coming soon, the Expedition course. Um, and you can also obtain my books, the award-winning DIY Brain, Staying Happy, Being Productive, and Expedition are also available there or on Amazon.
Awesome. And Neil, you mentioned the freak out quiz, but you have this new worry meter quiz as well.
Well, the worryometer and the freak out quiz are two different ways to assess how much of a worrier are you. How do you approach anxiety? And both are helpful.
Gotcha. Love it. Love it. All right. Well, we've covered a lot of ground. We did keep it just under an hour. I hope there was just a wealth of helpful information for you to accomplish, achieve your goals and your objectives. Understanding, why we make resolutions, drawing that line in the sand, that it's wanting to improve your life in some way, shape, or form, whether it's your business, whether it's your health, uh, just being better tomorrow than you were yesterday, and that you can be more for people that you serve in your life,
Yeah.
whether it's your nephew, whether it's your client, whether it's your wife, whether it's your husband. We really want to help you figure out how it is that we improve our lives on a day-to-day basis and how it is that our brains work to help accomplish that, or hopefully avoid not accomplishing that. So anyway, all to say, thank you so much, Dr. Hall. We appreciate your time and information.
I'm delighted to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. All right. Other than that, we'll wish everybody a blessed one. Take care.